You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Day 2, our top 8 of the Season 5 Eternal Tournament Series Invitational. I am, of course, your host, Bairdrus, joined by my wonderful co-caster, LighsOutAce.
Hello.
The Sharp Cut got in. Y'all had a really good pre-show, man, and I don't believe y'all got to make it to this point where we were talking about Hulkbuster versus Jaffa, but I know you've taken a look at these deck lists, and man, these are some pretty interesting deck lists here. Not exactly what I would have expected in our top 8. Certainly not Jaffa's Owl list. And let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so this deck is powered by the newly buffed 8 of the Huru. So just a week and a half ago, it was buffed to draw 4 cards instead of 2. So at this point, casting 8 of the Huru is basically just game over. So this deck is just all the ramp possible, harsh rule to survive, and then 8 of the Huru, Great Parliament, Seraph. Once you get to 12, you just start smashing them with owls.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and honestly, I haven't really seen 8 of the Huru cast yet. So I'm pretty excited to see it in this matchup. He's going up against Hulkbuster, who's on this TJP aggro mid-range list. I mean, it's essentially Elysian aggro or Elysian mid-range, but he's splashing in cards like Vanquish and Valkyrie Enforcer, Seraph. I mean, he's got quite a few cards in here. Actually, it's almost more like the Elysian part is the splash. Truthfully.
Yeah, Cambrai aggro is missing a good 2-drop, so we had Kothon. It's missing a good way to finish the game, so we had Crystallize. It's missing good harsh rule recovery other than Stand Together, so it's got Scouting Party. If the influence works, all the cards are really, really powerful.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that is the upside of playing TJP, is you always have those powerful cards, so we'll see how it works out for the two players as we are jumping into our first game here. Just as a reminder to all of our viewers, this is top 8, so all of our games today will be played in a best-of-5 series with sideboarding after game 2, so these series are going to be a little bit longer on average than they normally would be. Plenty of time for players to run the series back, so one bad game doesn't necessarily break you.
Yeah, and like Rakenner said at the end of the pre-show, Sunnyvale does have work commitments, so his match is going to be running concurrently to this one, so we will not see his winner's match.
Yeah, we will give y'all the results, though, as they come in. And we already see some early aggression here out of Hulkbuster, getting his Awakened student down. He's going to be pressuring in against Jaffa.
Yeah, so Jaffa has an Islands choice, which can kill the Awakened student next turn. But then he's using a crucial turn where he'd rather be casting a ramp spell or a Parliament or something. So I guess he's just going to harsh rule away these first two to sort of clear up the board a little bit. But Hulk has a very powerful follow-up with Sandstorm Titan and then Stand Together Backlash if one of his units ever survives the turn.
Yeah, exactly. Once this Sandstorm Titan is going to be in play, it's going to be very hard to take care of since Hulkbuster will be able to hold up the Stand Together. And, I mean, Sandstorm Titan will be a very powerful unit here. It's going to shut down Jaffa's Owl synergy. That being said, once Jaffa can make 2 Owls from Great Parliament, he'll be able to hold it down a little bit better.
Yeah, this is kind of showing the awkwardness of Island's choice, right? Hulk gets to attack with this, and then if Jaffa Island's choices, it can be protected with Stand Together, which it wouldn't have been able to if Jaffa just had a Vanquish. But it does have that extra utility of being able to counter stuff like Great Parliament. Not in this matchup. In this matchup, it only counters Crystallize and Scouting Party.
Yeah, not a lot of spells, only 3 in the main board, so we're going to see a lot more of the second mode of Island's Choice, where he's going to be taking care of attacking enemy units. That being said, as we alluded to, Hulkbuster has many a way to counter that Island's Choice between Backlash actually countering it and Stand Together.
Yeah, so here we see Hulk kind of preemptively run out this Desert Marshal. That way, if Jaffa does use the Island's Choice on the attacking Sandstorm Titan, he can Stand Together it and buff the Desert Marshal as well.
Yeah, so he'll have 2 larger units in play. We now see Jaffa picking up a Desert Marshal, and I have to imagine we're going to see Jaffa go ahead and fire off his Great Parliament this turn. Get 2 4/4 Owls on the board. That way he can hold the board down a little bit better. Now, even with the Stand Together that Hulkbuster's representing, Jaffa will be able to lock the board down with the 2 Owls double blocking the Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah, Desert Marshal silencing an Owl doesn't do a whole lot when there's already a Sandstorm Titan in play. So I guess Hulk's line now is to scouting party and go much wider than Jaffa can handle, and then just stand together offensively?
Yeah, I think that's a fair line of play. Like if you drop a scouting party, now that he's got a second one, yeah, if he can get two scouting parties in play and then just go offensive here, like this can be very, very good for him. And Jaffa doesn't have a ton going on right now, but Jaffa will use the island's choice at this point to counter the first scouting party.
Yeah, so Jaffa did end up getting a nice use of that island choice. Didn't use it on Titan. Titan isn't what's important here. Like Jaffa will eventually be able to gump the board with a couple of blockers. So he wisely saves the choice and now counters a scouting party, which would have, I guess, drawn Hulkbuster only one card because Jaffa could have ambushed in the Desert Marshal, silence one, and block another. But it's still gives him a little bit more time here to draw one of his payoff cards. Like Jaffa now is just hunting for a Mystic Ascendant, another Parliament, a Seraph. Even 8 of the Huru isn't far off.
Yeah, Jaffa's got plenty of threats here he'll be looking to deploy. He just needs to get he needs to pick them up off the top of his deck, and that's just going to come down to the amount of turns he needs. We do see the second scouting party getting fired off here by a Hulkbuster. As you said, though, with the Desert Marshal, he'll be able to essentially block down 3 of these. So Hulkbuster only looking to draw 1 card here, but 1 card may be all he needs, really.
Yeah, and I mean, Hulk has tons of gas in the tank, too. Like, stand together with another Desert Marshal. Like, he's going to be pushing a lot of damage here.
Yeah, he could even drop the Desert Marshal now to silence the Owl and buff all the units up with Stand Together. Ooh, and he hits a Vanquish off the top of his deck. This is pretty huge. Now this is going to clear the way for a massive attack here, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Stand Together fired off by Hulkbuster just to start pressuring Jaffa's life total even more.
Yeah, it gets in for an extra 4 points of damage, which pretty relevant when your opponent is getting down to the single digits here.
Yeah, this is going to push Jaffa down to 9 with Lethal sitting on the board. So let's see if Jaffa can pick something up here to keep himself alive. We'll also need to see the draws from Hulkbuster. Or Runehammer will keep him alive at current time. It'll depend on the draws Hulk was able to pick up.
Yeah, so that buys him 1 more turn. He can't even cast an 8 of the Huru, and it won't stun the units because of the Aegis. I think Jaffa needs exactly Great Parliament or Seraph into I don't know, some lifesteal unit.
Yeah, Seraph into a nice lifesteal unit would probably be the way out of this game, but it doesn't look like he's going to have enough time for that at this point. I mean, Hulkbuster has so much pressure on the board, and Jaffa's going to need 2 spells to be able to clean the board up. We do see
there's the Seraph. So Hulk does have a Valkyrie Enforcer, though. So is there something with charge and lifesteal? I'm having a tough time thinking of it.
I think so, yeah. That was a pretty sweet Minotaur Grunt there. Like, it was able to, or Copperall Bailiff, not Minotaur Grunt. Copperall Bailiff did clean up the Aegis, but Jaffa, of course, having no cards in hand, not able to follow it up there. So that will be Hulkbuster taking down our first game, as we'll be getting ready to jump into our second game in just a moment. As I said, these are going to be best of 5 series, so no sideboarding needed until after this next game.
Yes, there should not be much delay here, and yep, looks like they're already in.
Yeah, how many copies of Scouting Party is Jaffa playing, or Hulkbuster rather?
He is running 3 Scouting Parties and only 1 Crystallize.
Yeah, so he was able to pick up 2 of the 3 there, and that seemed to be pretty important in that matchup. I mean, not just the card draw being important, which it was, but also just being able to amass more units on the board and go wide against Hulkbuster.
Yeah, Scouting Party is really just insane in any matchup where your opponent isn't also playing a bunch of units. Like, if they don't have 4 units to block all of those Yetis, it's just like a card advantage and an army in 1 card.
Yeah, and we even saw what almost was a good enough defense there out of Jaffa, with him being able to silence one with the Desert Marshal, then block a second one with the Desert Marshal, and he still had an Owl in play, so he would have been able to reduce it to 1, but the Vanquish picked up at a very key time for Hulkbuster, was able to take care of the Owl there and really just allow him to swing for the game. So
Jaffa keeping an interesting hand here, like only 1 power, the Cambrai Banner, but a Temple Scribe, a Find the Way, and a Secret Pages. So if he finds a single, like just a second power in his next 2 draw steps, then he'll be able to sort of take off and then stabilize the board with Harsh Rule.
Did Jaffa actually keep this hand? Because I know the in-game client spectate sometimes make it look like he kept his hand. I'd be very surprised if he did. But, I mean, I guess it is entirely possible. On the other side, I mean, from what I saw of Hulkbuster's hand, it didn't look like he was going too crazy over there. It looks like he's got a couple of Amber Acolytes and a Valkyrie Enforcer, so he'll be able to put on a little pressure early. And he's got 2 Seek Powers to find whichever power he needs on top of the 2 Amber Acolytes. So he'll be able to curve out nicely, but he doesn't have a lot to curve into at this point.
Yeah, no 2-drop. He plays 12 of those.
Yeah.
This hand is just like, he's going to hit all of his power and influence requirements, but he has all the power and influence he needs, so he just needs to draw some threats.
Yeah, really, though. I mean, he's got plenty of threats in the deck, too. Like, taking a look at Hulkbuster's deck, I mean, he's got Sandstorm Titan, he's got the Xenon Obelisk, he's got the Scouting Parties we obviously talked about, a couple of Amber Monuments for some bigger bodies, and, you know, he's got Seraph and Kothon, which are some cards he would really, really like to see here, but yeah, he's kind of found some of his weaker units, really. The Amber Acolytes that are going to be entirely used for smoothing out his power since he is playing a 3-faction deck. And the Valkyrie Enforcer, which can come in handy in a lot of matchups, but in this one, it's not going to be putting in but so much work, especially in the early game where Hulkbuster is likely to drop it down just as a 3/3 into an empty board.
You can hit like Seraph or Mystic Ascendant, that's about it.
Yeah, that's really about it. There isn't a ton in the deck. What else is there? Like, yeah, it's going to be Seraph or Mystic Ascendant, really, because everything else is just like a flying unit. I mean, Martial Ironthorn is obviously a threat you want to take out, but, you know, like I said, I mean, it's very likely he'll be playing the Valkyrie Enforcer way before Jaffa's playing down any of his major threats, even though Jaffa is playing a very ramp-heavy deck.
Okay, looks like Jaffa finally decides to redraw that hand, probably wisely, because he gets a much better one here.
Yeah, this is a lot better. I mean, he's missing some of the power, but he does have 2 Temple Scribes here, and he's got the Seraph to hold off the early board. So he even picks up a Secret Pages, so he'll be sitting pretty as we go into the later turns of this game. And as we were alluding to, Hulkbuster not having a lot of gas in the tank immediately, just a couple of these lesser units, though he does pick up a Stand Together, which is going to be quite relevant in this matchup, as we saw last time. Like, just being able to keep Jaffa away from removing any of his units will allow him to swarm in time.
Yeah, in the last game, if Hulk hadn't used the Stand Together, the Copper Hall Bailiff would have reduced the strength of his units enough such that Jaffa would have continued to live for another turn.
Yeah, it would have bought him at least 1 or 2 more turns here. And we do see Hulkbuster leading off with this Amber Acolyte, picking up a power. And Jaffa's just going to use end-of-turn Secret Pages. He's just trying to ramp himself out here. I mean, as we alluded to, that really is the purpose of Jaffa's deck. It's just like, how fast can he ramp himself out? And he's doing a pretty good job.
So hard. Like, Minotaur Ambassador, I love that card. It just like, it puts you from 6 up to 9 the next turn. It's like very good when you want to hit those absurd power counts for crazy stuff like 8 of the Huru.
Yeah, and you can drop things like Mystic Ascendant and then kind of build your own Martial Ironthorn using a Minotaur Ambassador. Like, it's kind of the same thing, right? Not exactly, but it works out. We see a Sandstorm Titan picked up and dropped for Hulkbuster, though, and Jaffa has decisions to make now. This is a clean board for him to fire off Harsh Roll into, which, generally speaking, like, you wouldn't just want to pick up a Sandstorm Titan and an Amber Acolyte, certainly not when you have 2 Temple Scribes, but he does have to consider that Hulkbuster is playing 4 Stand Togethers in the deck, so, I mean, we saw last time how that made his interactions worse as the game went on.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of tough choices, like Harsh Rule while your opponent is powered down, Ambassador to just ramp up, or do you want to save the Ambassador for after you Mystic Ascendant? It's a tough turn. He eventually just opts to grab the extra power. Now if he draws another power, he can like Ascendant while holding up Island's Choice, which is a very strong play. So I think I agree with this. Like, there's no reason to Harsh Rule there when you have all these 1/1s to chump block. Like, he can chump block this Titan for so long.
Yeah, that is true. He can take down the Titan. It just will sit on the board for quite a while, and it's unlikely that it's going to get removed here. And unfortunately, the one thing Island's Choice doesn't take care of is that Valkyrie Enforcer that Hulkbuster was able to hang on to. So Hulkbuster is, in my opinion, going to have the advantage here, even though Jaffa has ramped out quite well. And Hulkbuster even had the Desert Marshal in hand, so he's able to take care of it immediately and hold on to that Valkyrie Enforcer for a later turn.
Well, he takes care of the Empower, but it's still a 6/6. Like, Hulkbuster can't really attack on this board into a 6/6.
This is true for the time being, but then he does just pick up the Xenon Obelisk. So he's going to have Xenon Obelisk, plus he'll have 2 stand-togethers. Wouldn't be surprised if we just see him fire off an end-of-turn stand-together to buff all the units and then drop Obelisk next turn to just try and start bullying Jaffa off the board. That being said, though, as you alluded to, I mean, there is a 6/6 on the board still, and there is a nice 3/5 body on the Minotaur Ambassador, so that'll be able to block most of the units that aren't Sandstorm Titan.
Well, another Mystic Ascendant is a nice pickup here. Sort of gives him better like double blocks, as it were. Like he can Mystic Ascendant to plus Temple Scribe to kill the 7/8 Sandstorm Titan, and then the other Mystic Ascendant can block like a 4/3 Acolyte or Desert Marshal.
Yeah, that was a very nice pickup for him. It is going to force Hulkbuster's hand, and he's going to have to drop this Valkyrie Enforcer here to silence the second Mystic Ascendant we see coming down. And of course, as we said, Hulkbuster going to lead off with that Xenon Obelisk now to buff the units up. He needs one more power in play to get the second trigger out of it, and he has another stand together.
Sands to give that. Jaffa gets the fast speed draw off Mystic Ascendant here. That's kind of cute.
Oh yeah, that is pretty nice. I mean, the buffing it up to an 8/8 is quite relevant here. I mean, at current time, it's holding down the Sandstorm Titan by itself. Obviously, we know he's going to have the Initiate next turn for the 8th power, as well as another stand together. So we could see another +2/+2 on all the units on the board. And at that point, you know, even these 2/1 Amber Acolytes are going to be crashing in for 6 damage.
Yeah, I think that Jaffa kind of has this. Like, Seraph activate. If Hulk can kill this Seraph, he's got another Seraph. Like, I don't see how Hulkbuster ever beats this board without Crystallize, which Jaffa has Island's Choice for.
Yeah, that Island's Choice is just so sweet right now. Like, being able to negate it, it's putting Hulkbuster in quite an awkward position. If it weren't for the Island's Choice, as you said, you know, Crystallize would be able to crack this board open, but Seraph's gotten 2 activations off now, and it's just kind of spiraling out of control. Hulkbuster with no way to take care of the Seraph, and a second one in the waiting for Jaffa. Yeah, I don't see a way Hulkbuster is going to get out of this game at this point. I think we're just going to be playing a nice slow burn until Seraph hits something a little too big for Hulkbuster to be able to take care of.
Yeah, it's just accruing so much value. He's just going to pound with like 12/12s and 10/6s, pick off 1 or 2 of Hulkbuster's units every turn while never running out of units himself. Like, it's just going to be the slow grind out. I think Hulkbuster is approaching 0% to win this game.
Yeah, and this is pretty bad here for Hulkbuster because he's just going to have to be chump blocking every single turn against this 12/12. There's no clean double block here without sacrificing Sandstorm Titan. And if you have to lose Sandstorm Titan here, you're just making cards like Hunting Teriac such a threat. We'll be able to close out the game in a few short turns. So Jaffa at this point, I mean, kind of just in control. Like, he doesn't really need to do a lot either. He can essentially just use Seraph over and over, spin the wheel, and keep popping out units.
Just click Seraph, get a double-digit strength unit every turn. Once your board is full, you hit a space.
Yeah, basically. I mean, really not a lot Hulkbuster can do here in this position.
And so, like, Jaffa doesn't really have a way to, like, this Iron Thorn, even if it ultimates, a bunch of Hulk's units have Aegis, so it doesn't really matter. So he just has to kind of grind through all of the bodies with these huge fat boys.
Yeah, and I mean, there just aren't that many bodies for Hulkbuster at this point, and I'm not sure, like, even, you know, I mean, the best thing he can pick up at this point is probably, like, Scouting Party, maybe? And that's
even then, that's just a couple more turns of chumps, yeah.
Exactly, like, you're buying yourself an extra turn at this point, and this is just getting completely out of hand here. Oh yeah, we're even going to be able to see a Seraph activation into an Auric Runehammer this turn for Jaffa, so he'll be able to make another huge body as well as take care of one more blocker that Hulkbuster's got on the board.
Well, the stand together does stop the Runehammer, but that's kind of irrelevant. Like, oh, here's another 10 strength unit. They're all hits. Everything is good. No
low rolls today out of Seraph, so we see Hulkbuster allow himself to go down to 1. So at this point, yeah, Jaffa likely just going to hold on to the Island's Choice. He is under no pressure here. Not going to need to even use the Runehammer. He's just going to let Hulkbuster try and figure out how to survive. I mean, there's just no way. There's no single card there he could pick up that could keep him alive.
From Hulkbuster's perspective, to Crystallize, but he didn't know. Like, if this was like a physical card game and Jaffa could reveal his hand and be like, I have an Island's Choice, I think Hulk would have scooped like 4 turns ago.
Yeah, certainly. That's what I was about to get into. Is that like, yeah, the one card that he was really drawing towards there was the Crystallize, and just no way for him to actually win the game from our perspective. So we will see the players hit their sideboard now, as we do see the players split the games 1-1. Head into our sideboards and look at what plans we have cooked up here. Let's start off with Jaffa. Even though he
has a couple more Vanquishes. I don't think you want the Permafrost. Hulk has a bunch of Silence. So probably just Vanquish and like maybe the Runehammer.
Yeah, I think Vanquish and Runehammer is fine here. Yeah, other than that, there aren't a ton of cards in here. Like, maybe he picks up Protect, but there's not really a lot that Hulkbuster is doing to shut his units down. So, and Island's Choice takes care of really the only threat that he's worried about in spell form, which is Crystallize. So, yeah, I mean, from Jaffa's perspective, he really doesn't need to bring a lot of cards in here. Like, maybe you can make an argument for bringing in Valkyrie Enforcer, but again, there aren't so many units you need to silence on a Hulkbuster. I mean, he does have quite a few good targets in Kothon and Seraph, so maybe that warrants bringing the Valkyrie Enforcers in. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think if you're Jaffa, you can bring in the Vanquish and the Auric Runehammer, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and then Hulk actually has a lot of cards to bring in against like sort of a harsh rule mid-range deck. He gets to bring in Dawnwalkers and Shelterwing Riders, which are both good there, and also a fourth Stand Together.
Yeah, how do you feel about Xena Initiation here?
I don't think you want Xena Initiation. Like, all of the units are either way bigger or way smaller. I think that that's like kind of fighting. That's like when you're fighting units that are this similar size to yours.
Yeah, that's true to some extent. My consideration for bringing it in this matchup specifically is there are just some annoying units that Hulkbuster needs to like get through at some point that he doesn't have an excess of removal for. Because if we look at his list, I mean, since he is playing TJP, he's not really in a removal heavy list. And there are a bunch of cards where if you don't have a silence on hand, like Seraph, there's no way for you to take care of it. That being said, I mean, he is playing at least 8 copies of Silence in his deck, so he does have plenty of ways to at least answer them for the time being.
Yeah, the hard part is going to be figuring out which cards to cut. He's got like 80 cards that seem good, so he's got to trim some good ones. Yeah, it looks like he has opted to cut Desert Marshal, and he's still deciding what his other cut is.
Yeah, do you bring in your 4th copy of Scouting Party here?
Yeah, it's just the best response to Harsh Rule that there is.
Yeah, it does help you reload the board. The only downside, of course, being that we do know that Jaffa is obviously on these Islands choices. He could possibly bring in the Backlashes as well. I wouldn't be too surprised to see him bring in the Backlashes, since that's the only way he's going to be able to take care of Stand Together. So we might see those come in, which...
Hulk doesn't actually have any Backlashes, does he?
No, but Jaffa does.
Oh, gotcha. Just as more crystallized protection.
Yeah, more crystallized protection, and also, as I was alluding to there, it allows him to take care of the annoying Stand Together. As we said, the first game was mainly won on Hulkbuster's part by just having that really well-timed Stand Together and being able to build this big board that was too difficult for Jaffa to actually navigate with all the units that were protected. So if you're able to counter that, that's pretty big.
Very true, yeah. And it's not hard for Jaffa to hit 7 power for Harsh Rule plus Backlash. Like, he routinely will do that by turn 5.
Yeah, and we see, we do, fortunately, can see Hulkbuster sideboarding here, so we do see him bringing in cards like the Shelterwing Rider, which is kind of interesting, I have to say. I haven't seen that card see a ton of play, and I wonder if this is actually really the matchup you want to be bringing that into.
Well, it's just sort of another like layer of Harsh Rule protection because it has the Aegis. Like, yes, it's only a 0/4, but then when you Stand Together, it kind of like refreshes it, and then you have a 6/5 flyer again.
Yeah, that's true. I don't feel like that's where I would want to be personally, but we'll see how this goes. I mean, from my perspective, the things that make it awkward in this matchup, is that your opponent has a lot of silence effects, so they have a lot of ways to pop off the Aegis. As we said, he has a lot of ways to counter cards like Stand Together, assuming he brings in Backlash. And he also just has a lot of 4/4 bodies. Like, since, Jaffa's deck is actually called Owl Ramp, obviously he's playing a lot of the 4/4 Owl. So Great Parliament and Eight of the Huru are going to be able to shut it down fairly easily. Outside
It also
of
gets hammered, which is another good point.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things that can take care of it pretty easily here. But we'll see how it works out. I mean, if it's not immediately silenced, it is a very nasty 5/4 body that is going to warrant a quick response. And if Jaffa doesn't have one on hand, that could allow him to just, over the series of a few turns, take care of the game.
It looks like Hulk is taking out Titan in favor of Sheltering Rider, which makes sense. They kind of have anti-synergy, right? Like the Titan grounds your rider, so it can't fly over anymore.
Yeah, if you're going to bring in the riders, I was just thinking that too. So it's nice to see him taking that out there. I was just thinking of that in my head. It's like, if you're going to bring in 4 copies of Shelterwing Rider, having Sandstorm Titan in your hand just feels so bad, because a 5/4 unit that's just grounded is not, it's not even close to as scary as this 5/4 that's going to be in the air, that's going to force. What we'll likely see here is either Jaffa's going to be forced to use silences earlier than he wants to on the Shelterwing Rider, in which case it's possible Stand Together will be able to rebuff it. But alternatively, what we'll be seeing a lot of is that Jaffa's going to be forced to use Great Parliament on turn 4 if he has it, just to hold the Shelterwing Rider back from killing him.
Yeah, interestingly, so Sheltering Rider does have 5 strength for Dawnwalker, but other than that, he only has 1 Cerso. Like, so there's only 5 cards that bring back this Dawnwalker if Hulk doesn't have a Xenon Obelisk in play. If he has an Obelisk, there's a ton of stuff that brings it back, but just like natural 5 strength units, he only has 5.
Yeah, it's not a ton here. It is very interesting that he is bringing the Dawnwalkers, but I do understand, like, he is just trying to play the recurring value game. So we'll see if that pays off for him, as we are jumping into game 3 now with our players split at 1 apiece.
Yeah, so just looking at the opening hands here, Jaffa seems to have the early advantage here. He's got a nice curve of interaction, like Desert Marshal, Seraph, Vanquish, Harsh Rule, whereas Hulk isn't really doing anything. Like Vulcan Forcer on 3, Scouting Party on 6 is not an exciting curve for a deck that wants to be aggressive in this matchup.
No, definitely not. With the Auric Runehammer picked up for Jaffa, that's going to make this Valkyrie Enforcer on turn 3 look a lot less attractive. I mean, Jaffa just has a very, very good hand here. The one thing he's going to be lacking is power as we get into the later turns. He is going to be stuck at 3 for the time being, so he's going to need a series of draws that'll allow him to get power. Now, fortunately for Jaffa, obviously his deck is made almost entirely of cards that allow him to draw power, so he will have plenty of ways to pick it up here.
Mystic Ascendant is not what he wants to see, though. That's just another 6/7 drop.
Yeah, it lets him draw power, but you have to have 6 power in the first place and another one to follow. So he'll be looking for secret pages or something here. And here's that Shelterwing Rider we were talking about, and it's looking pretty terrifying right now. Luckily for Jaffa, even though he doesn't pick up a power, he does have the Desert Marshal. So he could just use that as a silence right now and fire it off. We do see Hulkbuster has the Stand Together in hand, though, and if he does use the Desert Marshal here, it's likely that we'll see Hulkbuster respond on his turn with a main phase Stand Together. That way he can rebuff both the units, get some protection, and just really start pressuring Jaffa's life total.
Yeah, I think Jaffa will probably go for the Island's choice on the Rider here, so that when he does eventually draw 4th power, he can play either Vanquish plus Marshal or Runehammer. It just gives him kind of like when you're constrained on power, you want to use your most expensive card first so that you can double spell later on.
Yeah, it lets him navigate the board better. I mean, it's also just better in this case to fire off the Island's choice. As you said, I mean, it's going to be a lot less effective than the Desert Marshal Vanquish combo is going to be, but we do see the Desert Marshal here. Oh, and interestingly enough, yeah, he's going to try and bring down the Valkyrie Enforcer. Let's see if Hulkbuster's willing to commit the Stand Together here. I have to imagine he is.
This is a really good play, because so the 3/3 would get eaten by Seraph. So if Hulk wants to protect it with the Stand Together, he loses his way of refreshing Aegis on the Shelterwing Rider.
Yeah, and since we do see Jaffa at least does have multiple ways to respond, he will be able to take care of that Shelter Wing Rider, though it will at least be a 1-5 now, so it's not going to be completely useless when it gets popped off here. Interestingly enough, though, Jaffa having a decision here, would not be surprised if he just goes for the Auric Runehammer and smashes the Valkyrie out of the air, since he will be able to take care of the Shelter Wing Rider later.
Yeah, this was kind of awkward because he can't double spell with Marshall and Vanquish, but I guess he did draw out the Stand Together on sort of less than optimal circumstances. The Stand Together didn't refresh the Shelter Wing Rider Aegis, so we'll see how this goes. So yeah, Jaffa can go for Vanquish now while there's no Stand Together available, or he can go for the Hammer.
Yeah, I think I like the Hammer here. I think you need Vanquish as a backup in case of another Stand Together, and as a way to possibly just take care of the Shelter Wing Rider at some point. Like, I mean, it is just a spell that pops the Aegis, so if you need it to do that, like, at least it serves its purpose here. I mean, there aren't a ton of threats Jaffa's going to be looking to hit with that Vanquish.
Yeah, I guess the other line of thinking would be Choice or Vanquish on the Sheltering Rider here, and hope to draw power, so next turn you can Harsh Rule, just take care of the Bulk Reinforcer incidentally. But Jaffa opts for the more conservative line, just wants to give himself the most amount of time to draw power.
Yeah, this could work out very well for Jaffa. I mean, even though he's been constrained on power this whole time, Hulkbuster didn't have a lot going on for him. That Kothon pickup is pretty sweet, though, and Jaffa really looking for a Harsh Rule, another power for Harsh Rule there. It's going to be pretty important for him since he doesn't find it. I have to imagine the game here with the Kothon popping off next turn. It's going to have more flyers. And as we said, the Shelter Wing Rider is at least buffed up to a 1-5 now, so we'll still be picking away for 1 damage each turn.
Yeah, so Jaffa just has no choice but to choice the Rider, take 3 in the skies, assuming Hulk ultimates the Kothon. And then the turn after that, even if he draws a power for Harsh Rule, Hulk has a follow-up scouting party. This is just looking really bad for Jaffa.
Yeah, Jaffa can survive going into the next few turns, but winning is going to be a very uphill battle.
Yeah, so he's going for a Vanquish right now. It doesn't really play around Stand Together. Well, I guess Stand Together makes it so that Hulk couldn't ultimate the Kothon, so it plays around it as well as Choice does. Either way, he's not dying to it.
Yeah, and we see Hulk had picked up another Dawnwalker, so be able to recommit that to board after this first Dawnwalker goes down. So, even if Jaffa is harsh ruling away the board here, all Hulk needs to do is find one of his large units, like another Shelter Wing Rider, drop it down, and he'll be able to recur 2 Dawnwalkers.
The Hammer would have been really good last turn to kill the Kothon, but now it just kills an Owl, and Jaffa's going to go down to 2 and hope that Hulk doesn't draw another Stand Together.
Yeah, it's not going to be... It's like we said, it's not game here, but we're very, very rapidly approaching that point. Jaffa is just scraping along at this point with his top decks. He really wanted to find the Harsh Rule here. Like, Harsh Rule was the card he needed, but as we said, there was already the reload. Auric Runehammer is about the next best card he could have picked up here, though. Buy him a little bit of health and allow him to take care of the 4/4 Owl.
Yeah, he's hanging in there, but it gets worse and worse every turn.
Oh yeah, and here comes another Shelter
bringing back a Dawnwalker.
Yeah, that's just going to be it. The Shelter Wing Rider is really just going to be what breaks the back here. The Dawnwalker's into play, and Jaffa just not having anything. He was never able to hit 5 power that game, which was very surprising for his deck. As I said earlier, he has so many cards that draw him power. It's very surprising to see him get stuck on 4.
It's possible that against an aggressive matchup like this, he trimmed on 8 of the Huru and Secret Pages to bring in those Vanquishes and Runehammers. But yeah, still, he does have like 33-ish power in his deck, I would assume.
Yeah, he's got plenty of ways. Players are re-sideboarding. Interesting that Hulkbuster's considering cutting the Shelter Wing Riders after... that game plan seemed to work out quite well for him here. And he did trim 4 of them out, so maybe this is a little bit of a mind tactic here where he subs them in to force his opponent to play more suboptimal removal like the Silences to take care of them, and instead now he's just going to side back into Sandstorm Titan here.
Yeah, the riders looked really good that game, better than a Sandstorm Titan would have been.
Yeah, like I said, I guess the intention here is that he's trying to force Jaffa to side into like 4 Valkyrie Enforcers here to be able to take care of the Shelter Wing Riders, and then he just brings Sandstorm Titan back in, since Sandstorm Titan is going to be a 5/6 regardless of the silence effect.
Yeah, that silencing Sandstorm Titan doesn't remove the powerful part of Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely an interesting play here. We'll see if it pays off for him. I mean, as we said, Shelter Wing Rider put in a lot of work that game, but maybe that was supposed to be like his little one trick there where he just brings it in and then pulls it straight back out. Kind of taking a page out of Angry Chicken's book. Angry Chicken, famously, our big Combri player, who was able to do the same thing, where he would start the game with Harsh Rule in his main deck and then immediately pull it out when his opponents went to sideboard in against it.
Yeah, making your opponent play around cards you don't have is very strong.
Yeah, and I think he finished up there. I think those were really the only changes he made in the deck. So, yeah, we'll see if that pays off, though. I mean, Sandstorm Titan was putting in a lot of work in the beginning of the game, but I have to say, I did like the Shelter Wing Riders there.
Yeah, they certainly were stronger than we thought they were going to be.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Jaffa has an anti-Shelter Wing Rider hand here, 2 Desert Marshal, 4 power, and a Mystic Ascendant. So this is the sort of game where if Hulkbuster starts with an Awakened student, he'll get some beats in.
Yeah, he'll be able to get some beats in if Hulkbuster can find the Awakened student. He also has the Sandstorm Titan that we were just talking about, so he will be able to put on that early pressure and at least take care of some of these units. But Jaffa's hand looks much better this time around. He's already guaranteed 4 power. He's got 2 Desert Marshals to take care of any of the early threats. He's got that Great Parliament and the Martial Ironthorn to lead off in Mystic Ascendant. So very likely he'll be able to hit that high power count here. We do see Secret Pages being picked up.
So he does still have Secret Pages in.
Yeah, and this is great. I mean, this is going to allow him to ramp into Martial Ironthorn if he wants. I'd be surprised if he played a Naked Martial Ironthorn, but we'll see how he chooses to navigate the upcoming turn. Definitely with this Sandstorm Titan now hitting the board here.
This is kind of cool. Hulk plays the Titan, being like, well, there's no way I can get Harsh Rule this turn, right? But then Secret Pages lets you turn for a Harsh Rule. Jaffa doesn't have it, but just kind of a fun interaction.
Yeah, that would have been actually pretty great here for Jaffa if he had a Harsh Rule in hand, since as we see, Hulkbuster's got the 2 Xenon Obelisk to lead off into, and then an Amber Acolyte. So Harsh Rule here would be pretty devastating. Hulkbuster can set himself up for the later turns of the game, but right now he doesn't have a lot going on. And he actually does play the Naked Martial Ironthorn here. I have to say, I'm a little surprised about that.
Well, he's got so much more power packed into his hand. Like, he's not going to play something... He's not going to play the Ironthorn over the Ascendant, right? So he might as well just get the Ironthorn out, so in case he does survive, he can contest the board. Like, now this Ironthorn plus a Desert Marshal can trade with the Sandstorm Titan. Well, it could in Jaffa's mind. He doesn't know that Hulk has another Xenon Obelisk.
Yeah, and oh man, the Xenon Obelisk is going to be so clutch here. Like, he's going to...
Oh, he just runs out a Naked Ascendant, too. Yeah, he just wants to fight for the board.
Yeah, Naked Ascendant is quite surprising there, and we are going to see this Awakened student just get absolutely huge in the meantime. And Hulkbuster obviously swinging in with the Sandstorm Titan here. He's happy to make any trade that Jaffa is willing to make.
Yeah, and since Jaffa has committed so many high-value units to the board, Hulk can also commit a bunch of units to the board. Like, Harsh Rule isn't even like great for Jaffa when he's Harsh Ruling away his own Ascendant and Ironthorn, you know?
Yeah, I'm curious to see, because Hulkbuster is likely to take the Mystic Ascendant down here since it's the scarier threat, but that means if Jaffa picks up a power here, he's going to be able to jump a Mystic Ascendant up to an 8/8 and draw 2 cards on the next turn, which is basically going to stop Hulkbuster right in the tracks.
Yeah, Hulk is trying to decide which one to kill. It's tough.
Yeah, it's not a good decision to be making.
If you kill Ironthorn, that's the bigger guy, but then Ascendant can become even bigger. If they have a second copy of either in hand, then you don't have any good choices. And decides to take out the Ascendant in the end.
Yeah, and does get paid off for it slightly since there was no power picked up here. Jaffa not going to be able to lead off into the Mystic Ascendant. Or was the Valkyrie Enforcer picked up, though? So Valkyrie Enforcer can make another relevant body that'll be able to block down a unit as well as taking care of that Empower effect on the Awakened Student. So this is a pretty good pickup here for Jaffa. Other than that, he's likely to just be holding on to these Desert Marshals. As there's no way, unless he was absolutely forced to, he's going to fire off that Great Parliament. And he already
Parliament on 7 is just the saddest thing ever.
Yeah, that really is. I mean, that's a must situation. You're never doing that because you want to. Vanquish comes in handy though here, and Hulkbuster, I'm actually surprised he throws the Amber Acolyte in here. I mean, he does have another one for backup, so it's not crazy, but I'm a little surprised he doesn't hold on to it here. I guess he just really values cleaning the board up.
Yeah, because that Acolyte would be a 6/5 once he picks up another power, like way out of range of this puny Valkyrie Enforcer. But
yeah, and I think we're actually just going to see a double block on the Awakened Student here, which is fine since Hulkbuster has that second Amber Acolyte that's going to allow him to pick up his 8th power for the next turn. All of a sudden, Jaffa's staring down 2 6/5s on the board.
yeah, so like Hulk didn't want to wait one turn to pump his guys up because Jaffa's deck puts a ton of pressure on you to be aggressive. Like you're not beating it in the late game, right? Like 8 of the Huru is basically unbeatable. So maybe Hulk kind of felt pressured, but I think that Jaffa probably boarded down on 8 of the Huru, and he also brought in Permafrost, which is really interesting against this 8 silence deck of Hulkbuster. Like Permafrost is only a temporary measure.
Yeah, and this is interesting here too, firing off that Great Parliament. Like we were just talking about how sad it is to feel, how sad of a feeling it is to play Great Parliament, and instead we're just going to see double blocks here, which was likely the follow up. But man, if Jaffa doesn't hit a power here, it's just kind of dead in the water for the time being. And that Auric Runehammer is absolutely the worst pickup he could have gotten here.
Yeah, it kills literally nothing now. Everything is going to have at least 5 health.
Oh, and
oh my God. Kothon is a 6/7 and an 8/8 flyer. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, although I have to imagine if you're Hulkbuster, you can ultimate Kothon here, right? Like if you ultimate Kothon, you're just playing with fire. Instead, he's going to hold up that stand together to ensure that it will survive until the next few turns. So, I mean, the Kothon by itself is presenting such a disgusting threat.
Yeah, I mean, that does, like, shout out from the mountaintop, I have a stand together in my hand, but, like, what is Jaffa going to do about it? Like, the Desert Marshal just gets blocked by the stand together. Mystic Ascendant, it's way too tiny to do anything.
Yeah, there's nothing he can really do here, so Hulkbuster just waiting to see what Jaffa's doing. Jaffa's navigating this turn as best he can, and there isn't a good line of play particularly here. Like, at some point, I guess he's just going to have to run this Mystic Ascendant out when he runs out of threats, but I don't think this is the turn you're looking to do it. So he's going to be holding on to the Mystic Ascendant for the time being. The Auric Runehammer, as we said, just doesn't do anything, and he's going to fire the Desert Marshal off here to try and get the silence. Yeah, this is an interesting consideration for Hulkbuster as to whether or not you actually use the stand together here. I mean, on the one hand, you do keep the Kothon protected, but on the other hand, it does leave you vulnerable to a harsh rule at any point. And that's kind of the one way that Jaffa is going to scale back out. And Hulkbuster does recognize that and allows the 6/7 to be silenced here.
So the awkward thing about this is now he doesn't get to ultimate it or use the stand together. So he went from having a 1-turn clock to now having like a 3-turn clock. And that's like even more pending if Jaffa gets blockers. So now he kind of has to do the slow beatdowns. Although a 6/6 Awakened Student is a very nice pickup.
Yeah, anything he picks up at this point is just so good. And like even this Mystic Ascendant here that's going to get powered up to a 6/6 is just going to be forced to become a chump blocker here. Yeah, we're going to see Stand Together fired off in response, and now this thing is going to have to chump block here to make sure that he doesn't die to lethal. And I mean, Jaffa is just looking like he is in a no-win right here.
Yeah, Parliament buys you a turn. Just picks up Seraph though. Yep, that's going to be it. So Hulkbuster up 2-1.
Yeah. No, actually, I think that's 3. Unless I'm mistaken, because Hulkbuster just won the last game. Remember, siding in the Shelterwing Riders.
Yeah.
So.
He got mauled by the Shelterwing Riders. So yeah, Hulkbuster takes the series 3-1 then.
Yeah, you're going to take down the series 3-1 here with some pretty interesting sideboarding techniques here. I'm curious to see if he brings that out later in the game as well. I mean, it worked out quite well for him here. The game 3 Shelterwing Rider put in a ton of work. We even saw Sandstorm Titan picked up there on the last turn for Hulkbuster.
Yeah, I must be old. My memory's going.
That's a lot of games, man. It's a lot of games. But yeah, we do see Hulkbuster taking it down 3-1. So he is going to advance on. And unfortunately, that means that Jaffa is going to fall out of the tournament here. Had a great run, though. He does finish in the top 8. He's going to get some series points for that, as well as some money. So congratulations to Jaffa for making it all the way to day 2. And unless I'm mistaken, are those players... which teams do they play for? Do you remember, LOA?
Well, I don't remember offhand, but I can bring up the old graphic from.
Yeah, we do have a graphic around here somewhere.
So yeah, SMJ is on Team Sea Power Gaming, and Hulkbuster is not on any team.
Yeah, Hulkbuster unteamed, taking down Jaffa. They're part of Team ET. So unfortunately, Team ET loses their second of 4 members. Their first member of their last remaining 3. Which, I mean, to be fair, 3 members in the top 8 is pretty good. You have to give them credit. They had a pretty great run here. So unfortunately, Jaffa falling down, though, and Moosh and Sunnyvale had to play each other. Do we have a result on the Jaffa the Moosh and Sunnyvale game, since they were playing at the same time? Let's see if we can get some info on that. Oh,
Sunnyvale prevailed 3-1. So Burn Queen moving on to the finals. Well, Chalice falls into the losers bracket.
Yeah, Sunny going on 3-1. So our next matchup is going to be Angry Chicken versus SMJ. And we'll be bringing you that matchup in just a few moments, folks. So stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back with the rest of our top 8 coverage.